Welcome into the Sports Objective, and you're watching 23 Jungle Tales on the Sports Objective via Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We also are found pretty much anywhere podcasts are found, including but not limited to Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Audio Boom. Right now, on Volume 5 of this season of Jungle Tales, we're very excited to be joined by a former Pirate right-hander, All-American in 1989, played for the Pirates from 87 to 90 for Coach O, the all-time winningest coach in East Carolina's illustrious baseball history. Welcome into the show, Jonathan Jenkins. JJ, we appreciate your time this afternoon.
Hey, Bubba, thank you. Pleasure to meet you, and it's an honor to be asked to be part of this, and thanks for allowing me to travel down memory lane with you.
Absolutely. As we discussed off the air over the last couple weeks, excellent memories of your Pirate career, specifically that 1990 season, which are some of my earliest, if not my earliest memories of East Carolina baseball when I was 9 years old. But so much success that the program's had throughout its history. But obviously that Coach O era, a tremendous number of CAA titles, NCAA tournaments. But just take us back to your childhood before we talk about your time with the Pirates, and just talk about your path with the game of baseball, and then maybe other sports you played, and then obviously your high school career and recruitment to ECU.
Well, you're going back a lot of years, Bubba. So I'll try to do my best. But I grew up in the Culpeper, Virginia area. I still live close to Culpeper, and we had a great childhood. We had, back then you'd take the gloves outside and throw, and we played. We didn't have all the games that the kids have today, but played Little League baseball, was a shortstop, was a catcher, believe it or not, and always worked on pitching. But ultimately, as I got into the high school level, pitching was really my main direction. But we had a good high school team. We had a fellow graduate that also played pro baseball. He went straight out of high school with the Pittsburgh Pirates. And then we also had a player that played in the NBA. Keith "Mr. Jennings" was one of our infielders. He was a year behind me. He played for the Denver Nuggets back in the early 90s, went to East Tennessee State. And then a year before I graduated high school, we had Chris Lawrence is his name. He played for George Mason, and we got to face off in the CAA the next couple of years. But so our high school team, I thought, was very good. We had some success, and anyway, so as I also played basketball, and my high school basketball coach thought I was nuts for wanting to play college baseball. I was 6'7" at the time, and he just thought, what in the world is this guy thinking about going to play baseball? But baseball was my passion, and truly was hoping that could be my future. So I had a couple opportunities for both sports, and Liberty, VCU for baseball. Radford was in the mix at that time. And so we didn't see many scouts come through Culpeper County back in those days. So I do have a good story how I ended up at East Carolina. It was I just graduated from high school, and the Shenandoah Valley League, which is still in existence today, had a local team in Madison called the Madison Blue Jays. And I had this brilliant idea, I thought at the time, to go and try to get a tryout in front of the coach of the Blue Jays, because they were college players and they were college coaches. So it was a very monumental day for me, and I'll tell you why here in a second. But so I went to see the team and asked the coach if I could throw a bullpen, and he said, that's fine. He said, but I'm a high school coach. I'm out of Florida, but that's fine. Why don't you go down to the bullpen and just, I'll see what you got. Maybe I can put the good word in with somebody. So anyway, the catcher was Jim Riley from East Carolina. So threw a bullpen, did okay. And Jim came up to me and asked if I'd ever considered East Carolina. And I said I really hadn't, because I wasn't very familiar with it. I knew they had a good baseball program, but didn't know a lot more than that. So he said that you need to go down and meet with Coach O. So, but on that same day, I was actually walking to the bullpen across the school grounds, and I passed a young lady who I knew through some family, and anyway, she's my wife today. So anyway, that was a monumental day, like I said, for several reasons. But so I called Coach O and asked if I could come down for a visit. And again, this was a summer between, graduating and going to college. And so went down, met with Coach Overton, and he showed me around the campus. He was very accommodating, couldn't have been more friendly. Met some folks in the other parts of the school, and just it felt right. It felt at home, and so he gave me an opportunity to be an invited walk-on, and my parents backed me and said, "Look, we can make this work." I gave up some small scholarship opportunities to be a walk-on at East Carolina. And so that's what happened. And the invited walk-on gave me the fall to prove myself to the coaching staff. And so that's how I ended up at East Carolina. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
Before we really dive into your East Carolina experience, JJ, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but you bring up Mr. Jennings, Keith Jennings. We've had Keith on the show numerous times to talk college basketball, whether it's his career, or modern day. He's the head women's coach up at Lee's McRae. So I'll definitely have to tell Mr. Jennings that I've gotten to know you a little bit over the last several weeks. But in addition to that, tell us about your growth, because you referenced being 6'7". I know when you pitched for the Pirates, you were 6'8". So when did you really hit that growth spurt? Was it there late in middle school?
Yeah, I remember going from the Little League field when you're 12 over to the bigger field when you were 13, and I grew like 5 inches that summer, 6 foot to 6'5" or so. And, all my friends were shorter but I didn't think anything of it. I was always tall and just kind of was comfortable with it. There were days that you had 2 left feet and maybe, were getting your coordination. But I thought the fact that I played some other positions early on helped me as I grew to, field my position. It just was something that I was comfortable with. But that was really about the 12 to 13-year-old time frame is when I had my biggest growth spurt.
So after arriving on campus, I guess that would have been what the fall of '86?
Yep.
So tell us about that, your first taste of Division I college baseball and what that fall was like, and especially as a walk-on.
Well, I remember a lot of things, and I forget a lot of things too. But as far as the baseball experience, I thought we had some pretty talented kids growing up, and we had some good athletes in our area that we played, and especially in basketball, we really saw some good talent. But walking on that field and seeing the talent level at East Carolina at that time, I had never seen anything like it. And I thought I had a pretty good curveball in high school, and I remember throwing my first curveball in an inter squad. And there was a guy named Jay McGraw who was a couple years older than me, and he planted it firmly up into the jungle. And so I found out that high school curveball wasn't going to work at that level. And so Coach Best, who was there at that time, Coach Best was basically our pitching coach as well. And he said, "Hey, JJ, why don't you try a slider?" And I said, "Coach, I don't even know how to throw a slider." So he worked with me and eventually became one of my better pitches. So, but I just remember the talent level, and you just practiced and the fundamentals, and Coach O just had a regimen about it, and it's what I needed as somebody coming out of high school that maybe wasn't quite ready for that level of play, but I believed in myself, and I was just trying to play at the highest level possible.
No doubt. And you talk about just your impression of that talent that was on that roster. So much success during those years under Coach O. But you referenced Coach Best. Coach Best, excellent tenure there at East Carolina, also Auburn, NC State. And hate to bring that up about his time at NC State, but no, seriously, he's so well known. I guess my first exposure to him, I guess, was actually when he was an assistant at NC State for Coach Tanner before Coach Tanner went to South Carolina, and then also his time with the Atlanta Braves. I guess about the last 25 or over 25 years now, he's been a scout with the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, and I found an old picture when we had won the championship down in Wilmington, and I need to get his address because I was finishing up. We had some interview with one of the local TV stations, just catching us after the game, but it was Coach Best's wife and daughter when his daughter was about 2 years old, standing on the sideline, and so I need to find a way to get him that picture.
So tell us about the spring of '87. What are your first memories? Do you recall your first outing in that spring of '87?
Well, so I'd like to just, getting to East Carolina, as far as meeting people, the first person I ever met was John Adams, and the second person I met was Calvin, and I just want to say that when Woolwhite or John White called me about potentially being part of your show, he told me about Calvin. And I just, be remiss to say how one of the most somber days I've had in a long time when I got that news. He was one of my, he was my best friend through college. We were teammates, we were roommates. John Adams was our teammate and roommate as well. But, just that has really stuck with me. And I'm kicking myself that I hadn't reached out to Calvin over the last so many years to reconnect. But I just want to let you know that as far as meeting people, we were suite mates, and then we were roommates for 4 years. And so just those are memories that I have of just what a great friend and a great buddy and a great teammate excuse me, Calvin was. But and I've got a good story about Calvin for you maybe a little later. But so that's just really saddened me, and I'm like I said, sorry that wasn't able to connect with him before. But as far as my first experience, I didn't pitch a whole lot my freshman year, and you think you ought to be playing more, but the best thing for me was practicing in the bullpens, all the practice between games, the inter squad. But my first outing was at NC State, and we just got thrashed that day. And they were the better team, and it was my first outing, and just, pretty big stage to come on to. So I only threw about 4 innings the entire year. And again, you're 18, you're like, I'm not used to sitting, but hindsight, that was the best thing for me. And then once we got through that season, we won the conference championship in Richmond, and we ended up in the regionals down at Florida State. I think Tim Langdon, I believe, was talking about that experience down playing against Deion Sanders. And the next day we played Central Michigan, and Coach O was putting as many pitchers out there as he could, but I think the score was 17-1. By the time I got to the bullpen to warm up, the umpire was already coming to get me to come in the game. But threw a couple, 3 or 4 innings in that game and got a taste of what it could be like in the NCAA regionals. But my freshman year, I didn't play a whole lot, but it was a talented team. It was a senior heavy team. But we did qualify for the regionals that year.
Now talk about transitioning from that 87 to 88 season, because your last 3 years there from 88 to 90, you played prominent roles on part of a tremendous pitching staff. You just referenced Tim Langton, who's still in the greater Raleigh area, and And then, so many tremendous arms. You've also referenced John White, but tremendous pitching staff.
So, and my, my years there, I remember that my freshman and sophomore year, it was a older group of guys, and you had some real veterans, some good ball players. But the sophomore year for me, the team I felt like was not gelling. It wasn't. It was a little disconnected. I don't know why, but I just know that we didn't have quite the success that year, and we didn't make it to the regionals that year. I was very blessed to have been to the NCAA's 3 out of our 4 years that I was there, but that sophomore year, I started to get more playing time and gain some confidence, and got some momentum heading into the '89 season.
So just talk about, in addition to Billy Best, once he moved on to Auburn, talk about the other pitching coaches you had throughout your time in East Carolina.
Well, the Coach Best was there for 3 years, and then my senior year, Coach O, he manned the fort the whole fall by himself, and then he brought in Kevin Anderson, who had been at George Mason prior to that, and we knew Coach Anderson from the Shenandoah Valley League, and so Coach Anderson had the pitchers for the senior season, and we enjoyed playing for Coach Anderson. He worked the pitchers hard, and pushed us to a lot of limits there. But so it was really Coach. We would have some pro guys would drift in town. Roger Williams would come in town on occasion and work with us. But at the end of the day, it was Coach O and Coach Best, and at the end there, Coach Anderson supporting us.
So what are your memories of that 1989 season? As we were discussing off the air, and that was the season in which you were named a third-team All-American by the ABCA, the American Baseball Coaches Association. So talk about some of your top memories from what was obviously not only an excellent season for the Pirates, but you individually.
Well, unfortunately, you remember the losses more than the wins sometimes. But, being from Virginia through those, coming down to East Carolina through those years, you got to see the rivalries between NC State and UNC. And really, Wilmington was our big rival in the conference. But the CAA was a strong conference. Richmond had Andy Malloy and Brian Jordan and those guys back then. JMU had some guys that played at the pro level, and Old Dominion, we played them as well. So we really, I thought, played a strong schedule, and you could feel the team coming together in '89. We had some of the younger guys starting to come on, and so I do have one Coach O story when one of our star players that in the '89-'90 season got there was Kevin Riggs. So we did a lot of inter-squad back then, and Coach O would always stand behind the pitcher and call balls and strikes. So I think Riggsy was a freshman, so this might have been our sophomore year, and I'm throwing, we're battling it out, and Kevin hits a bullet over my head past Coach O to center field, and Coach O said, "JJ, that ball had jet propulsions on it," and I never forgot that one. That was one of the classic statements. But Kevin, to me, was one of the best hitters I ever played with, whether it was in college or at the pro level. He was what I would label a professional hitter. And he just could flat out swing that stick. So, but the team was just really starting to gel in '89, and we got into the tournament down at Wilmington, and I got to start against Mason, went 10 innings, and I remember that game specifically. We lost that opener 4-2 in extra innings, and I threw 150 pitches that game, and I threw 100 sliders. Coach Best kept calling it, and I kept throwing opponent. Of course, Eason was in our catcher at that point. I think I had about 14 strikeouts, if I recall. But I mean, nobody would let you throw 150 pitches today. And
Yeah.
but we lost that game, and then we go into the losers bracket, and it was just an all-out team effort. We fought our way back. We had Jake Jacobs pitching, we had Langdon, we had Brian Berkman, Woolwhite. And we made it back to the finals, and that's when. So I was back in pitching in the last game against Richmond, and I don't think I had my best stuff, but they hit a bullet. And I know you've heard this story, but they hit a bullet down to John Gast, and he made the play on his knees, throws the guy out at home plate, and we win the game to get to the regionals. So, those are the memories. It was just next man up type attitude and mindset.
Yeah, I believe that play that you referenced with John Gass came up not only when he was on the show, but also when John White was on the show when they
That
were
was a heck of
talking.
a play.
Yeah, they said it was unbelievable.
Then we went to Gainesville, Florida against the University of Florida was the opener. We battled. We just couldn't get it going that game. And then the next day we played Villanova, and that was my start, and I was flat that day. And in hindsight, I finished that game, finished the tournament, the CAA tournament. Coach Best was still with us then. And I'm like, I've threw so much, I need to rest. And so I backed off the week in between and just kind of got out of my routine. And so I was resting, but I was flat and I didn't have my good stuff. And so I learned that lesson, move forward to the next year. I was determined to not break routine and just to keep doing everything I had done all season. But so we got beat in '89 in the regionals. But again, you could feel that we were getting closer to, at least holding our own at that level.
And no doubt about it. So moving into that senior season in 1990, you take a look at things, and what a tremendous year that was. 47-9, the best winning percentage in the United States, and one of those things with college baseball. Unfortunately, we just had. I think we maybe had an injury or two. Remember that also just some bad luck with the weather down in that Coral Gables regional in 1990. But what are your memories of that 1990 season when the Pirates went 47-9?
Well, I'll tell you, since we first spoke, I've, tried to have some thoughts and try to gather what, you're going back a lot of years. But one thing I was thinking this morning was, we played hard for each other. We were truly a band of brothers. And I think what really made us special was we liked being together off the field also. So, you were just together all the time with the group of guys. And it wasn't like when the game was over, you didn't want to be together. You lived it, breathed it. We played hard for that jersey that we were wearing. And we bled purple and gold, no doubt about it. But some of my memories, I know we were up at UVA playing, and we stunk it up a little bit that day, one of our losses. And, I know you've talked to Tommy Eason. So Tommy, he always had that big wad of tobacco in his jaw. So I remember he got a little irritated with the fans at UVA, and he took that tobacco out and threw it up against the metal fence, and it just splattered everywhere. So that was one of my memories. I remember it was just a gritty bunch, and that offense that we had, the team I would have put up against anybody. And as I got to play on past college and into the pro level, I said it many a time, I would have put that 90 team up from start to finish. And so, just collectively, it was a strong unit, but they were feisty and nobody liked to lose. So I think it was from 89 to 90, they had put new dugouts in. And so, Coach O was really big on, representing the team. Don't show yourself out there. The other team will see you when you hang your head or you start cussing and getting frustrated. And it was also when you come off that field, you take it in the dugout and you don't show it where the fans can see it or potentially a scout could see it. So they built new dugouts, and I remember they had these nice bathrooms in the dugout. So the players would go in the dugout into the bathroom, and they would let out their frustrations, whether it was kicking a cooler, cussing, and then they'd come back out and be ready to go. But I mean, these guys played hard, and you truly wanted to go to battle with them. So just a lot of good memories. A lot of the good games we had. I know probably the highlight game that everybody likes to talk about is when UNC had come to Greenville and the jungle was just packed. I think it was about 6,000 fans there that night. And, the place was going crazy. And so we were winning 2-1 in the bottom of the ninth. Coach O brought me in as a closer that night. And they bunted with two. I never could figure this out, but it was 2 outs. They bunted one down the third base line. I got over, scooped it up, and threw it down to Calvin, who it was in the dirt when I threw it. So fortunately, he scooped it out. Ball game was over. And, back then, I don't know if they still do it today or not, but the players, we would shake hands at home plate. So we're walking across shaking hands, and the place is just going nuts. And Coach Roberts sticks his hand out to shake Coach Overton's hand, and he points to the outfield and says, "Gary, that's why we'll never play here again." And that's when there was a streaker going across the field. And, that was just a scene that you just can't make up. And so, like I said, there was nothing but good memories from that season. Truly just felt like our team was solid and strong from start to finish. And I actually was thinking this morning, Coach O, he gathered us probably towards the end of the season. He took us to the visitor. This is during practice, and he took us over to the visiting dugout for some reason. And we had a lot of, I'm going to say egos, but we had a lot of guys that were confident. But he wanted to focus on our shortstop, who was Barry Nairn. And he wanted to make sure we knew that Barry was an equal part of that team. And Barry was, he referenced him as the glue to that team. So, those were the things Coach O, he would find a way to motivate you and keep you grounded at the same time. So anyway, it was a special season. The trip to Auburn that Coach O spoke about, that was probably one of my highlights personally, just a chance to pitch at Auburn and, the chance to play against that type of competition. And I think the bases were loaded last inning, and guy hits a shot off me all the way to the center field wall. Tommy Yarbrough catches it against the wall, and we win the game 5-4. And it was just an opportunity that we had never been in that setting before. So, like I said, lots of good memories.
Yeah, you talk about that incident with North Carolina at Harrington Field. I've enjoyed getting the perspective on that from a variety of guys on that 1990 team. And can you imagine, JJ, in this day and age, here 30 plus years later, that would have been social media gold. Can you imagine the shares, the retweets, the comments? That would have been unbelievable to read.
I can't imagine it in today's society for sure.
Holy cow. But Coach Roberts, when he would run around to third base when there was the rematch in Chapel Hill a week or a few later, we at that point, I don't think we'd even heard the story because we didn't understand. We didn't know exactly what the deal was as far as the Pirate fans chanting "streak, streak, streak."
Well, you asked earlier about first experience. I remember the first experience I had with the jungle, not me personally, but just seeing the jungle, is when NC State came to Greenville my freshman year. And this, again, was before even before the internet, let alone social media. But they would just heckle that left fielder. So there was a left fielder named Jeffrey for NC State, and they, Jeffrey, and they would find out all kinds of information, who his girlfriend was, where he was from, or whatever it might have been. And then finally, Jeffrey acknowledged them. And then they were cheering for him after that. But that was my first time, like, wow, this place is unlike anything I've ever seen in my life.
So moving on from East Carolina, take us to the spring, I guess, spring, early summer of 1990, when you were drafted in the 20th round.
Yeah, it all happened so fast. We got to the NCAA's down in Coral Gables. We truly thought we were a World Series. That was our goal. We thought we could get to the College World Series, and we won the first game. I believe it was the first game the CAA had won in the NCAA, so we were proud of that. And we thought, we were 2 wins away from the World Series, and we just couldn't quite get over the hump. You referenced the weather earlier, so we had to sit around a couple of days, and then we just were flat against NC State in that final game. We'd beaten them twice during the regular season, but so anyway, next thing you know, it's over, and so we come back to town, all go our separate ways, and I was hopeful to get drafted. My junior year, I was some scouts had told me they were going to draft me, and then I had a bad outing in the regionals, and I think they backed off. And so I came back my senior year and just kept working hard. And then a scout from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, named Alex Cosmides, was a scout for the White Sox, and he had followed me around for a couple of years. And he gave me an opportunity, so he drafted me, and got the phone call, and that's what got me started into the minor leagues.
I know you had the opportunity to play 7 years in the minors and also coach a couple years. So, talk about some of your memories of that experience. I think the majority of your time in the minors was spent in A ball, be it low A ball or high A ball.
Well, it was. The first year I remember being a long season because we had been all the way through the college season, and then you continued on until about September, and that was in Utica, New York. I had some decent numbers. For the most part, I had good numbers throughout my pro career. Next year, I was in South Bend, single A, was a starter, and first 2 years I was doing okay. Then my third year, I was playing for Terry Francona, and Terry was a wonderful coach, great person, and I had a stress fracture, and so I went from throwing high 3/4 to being on the shelf and being shut down for the year. And I don't know if it was a combination of all those sliders through the years or just my body finally broke down, but so I came back the next year, and they wanted me to drop down to be a sidewinder. They said, throw like Dennis Eckersley. So I gave it a shot and tried it, and it took a while to get comfortable with it. But once I got in the flow of it, my arm never hurt me again. And well, for the most part. And but I did, you lose some things when you drop that angle down. So I became a situational reliever and played a couple more years. Arm felt great, but time then caught up with me. When you get to be in your mid to upper 20s, you need to be staying at the higher level. So my last spring training was 96, was with Joe Torre and the Yankees, and got to meet some Derek Jeter's rookie year, and through to Jorge Posada. Just Mariano Rivera was a rookie at that time as well. But I was 3 days from making the final cut. I'd worked out with the AAA team throughout spring training. I just couldn't make the final cut. So that was kind of like, to me, the beginning of the end. I bounced around a couple years in the independent leagues. At that time, they were just getting started. And my last year, I was a pitching coach in Minnesota for an independent league, player coach, and then that was it. I was like, all right, it's time to move on, and had an opportunity to interview, and then got a position with the Texas Rangers and coached for them for a couple of years as a pitching coach, and just loved being around it. And at that time, now you're watching the young men come along and try to help develop them, and so yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's kind of played for several organizations, and then I got out in 2000. That was the last year that I was part of it.
That's very interesting. Your interaction with Joe Torre and then Perry Francona, because from down 3-0 to take that series. That was just tremendous TV there. I remember, I guess that was the fall of my senior year of college, and I remember that was probably one of the last times that I was really locked in, watching every pitch of a postseason series like that.
Well, so I wanted to talk I just want to mention probably one of the funnest experiences looking back was with Calvin Brown. And so in the summer between my sophomore and junior year, we were playing in the Shenandoah Valley League, and Calvin was on the Waynesboro Generals, and I was playing for the Madison Blue Jays, and we're in the championship. And so I will, until I'm gone from this earth, I will swear that I struck out a guy named Shingledecker from NC State. And but a couple sliders on the black, he takes his base. Coach Swope comes out, who was a VCU coach, and he's coaching us on the Blue Jays. He wanted to bring in the left-hander for Calvin, but the lefties, he couldn't go. And I said, like a lot of pitchers, you always beg to stay in there. I said, Coach, I've got this. I've gotten Calvin out in inter squads. I can do this. I can finish it. So he leaves me in there. He said, all right, we'll just pitch up and away to him. So threw the first one up and away, and then the next one I threw right down the middle, and Calvin hits a home run to win the Valley League championship. And, I was crushed, and our team was crushed. And it was just a really, we were down and out. And so the place was going crazy. And Calvin took the microphone and addressed the crowd. And his mom and dad were there that night. And so a couple of weeks later, we're back in Greenville at East Carolina. And back then, they would put the highlights of those summer leagues in the USA Today. And so it had put a clip in there, college teammate Calvin Brown hits home run off of Jonathan Jenkins to win the Shenandoah Valley championship. And I remember Coach Best saying, the shot heard around the world. And so, as difficult as it was at that time, Calvin lost his dad within a year after that. And so, I just look back and things happen for a reason. And so that was the story I wanted to share with you about Calvin and me. And, again, being roommates, that was a big moment, but just loved him dearly and now miss him tremendously. So anyway, that was just a story I wanted to make sure I mentioned to you.
No doubt, and really appreciate you sharing that. I'm very glad that we were able to have Calvin on the show before he passed tragically in the summer of last year, July of 2021. But, as we're wrapping things up, JJ, tell us, I know present day, you're back in southwestern Virginia in Culpeper, if I'm not mistaken. So just tell us about what you're doing now and about your family. I know you have a daughter that's at Liberty University.
Yes. So Mary, my wife, Sarah, who we dated back in those years. So she knew all the guys. She would come down from a sleepy little college called Bridgewater to East Carolina was pretty much an eye opener back then. You pull into Greenville in the 80s. And and then we have a daughter who's 18 and she's at Liberty University. She's a freshman, very happy there, and that's about 2 hours from home for us. And I work for a company called Culpeper Wood Preservers, and we sell lumber up and down the East Coast and out into the Midwest. And we have customers right in Greenville and Home Builder Supply and Garris Evans. There's some customers locally. It's interesting, Bubba, because when I went to school at East Carolina, I only knew East Carolina for the college. And I would come from Virginia down to the school and then, back to home, and never really understood the culture of Eastern North Carolina until I started doing business and going to places like Morehead City and Atlantic Beach and New Bern. And so today, now I'm like, it's just a wonderful area. I can see why people like it so much. And again, those years for me were nothing but the best memories. And so I would be remiss to have an opportunity here to thank my mom and dad, who without them I would have never had those opportunities to put me in a position and to back me at that time. I'd like to thank my brother, who was a year younger than me, and he was my catcher. Um, and he would catch bullpens for me. And I want to make sure I thank Coach Overton for believing in me and giving me an opportunity when others didn't. So anyway, but Coach O, Coach Best, for an 18-year-old, they welcomed me and gave me a shot. So I'm forever grateful.
No doubt about it. And really look forward to getting to meet you in person, hopefully this spring at Clark LeClaire Stadium, and or maybe also up there in Blacksburg, as the Pirates will be playing Virginia Tech and Radford during spring break this year up there in Southwest Virginia.
Bob, I look forward to meeting you as well. And thanks again for having me and putting this program together. It's been a lot of fun reminiscing and going back and thinking about the good days that I had at East Carolina.
No doubt about it. Appreciate your time. Pirate Nation, remember, 23 Jungle Tales can be heard pretty much anywhere podcasts are found by searching the Sports Objective. Also, you can also view the show pretty much anywhere, such as YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Our show can be found there. But also remember to follow us on social media, on Twitter and TikTok at The Sports OBJ, on Instagram at The Sports Objective. Like and follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. But for our guest, Jonathan Jenkins, I'm Bubba Rosenbaum. You've been watching and listening to the Sports Objective and 23 Jungle Tales. Have a great weekend, everyone.